You are listening to We Are the Compassionate Revolution. I'm your podcast host, therapist, author, boundaries guide, Molly Moon. If you are a compassionate person and you want to know your worth, set better boundaries, live from your truth, and operate in your fullness, then I am so glad you've joined us. You ready? Let's get started. I am so happy today to introduce you all to somebody that I admire so much, Christi Byerly. She is the founder and CEO of Awaken Coaching Institute. I have that right, Christi?
Awaken Coach Institute.
Awaken Coach Institute. Christi is a healer, a mover, a shaker, a leader. And when you see truth, Christi, you just walk towards it, no matter what may come of it. And that's taken a lot of courage and bravery to do. And I think it makes you the kind of leader that you are. So with that, we're going to get into all this today and so much more. But let me turn the microphone over to you, Christi, and let you introduce yourself to everybody.
Well, it's so good to hear you say those kind words because you're someone who, of course, I respect and admire so much. In fact, I think you know that I just wrote my memoir in 6 weeks. It just suddenly blasted out of me, and you are a big part of my journey. So I'm excited for you to read it when it comes out because there's a lot of Molly Davis Moon and being boundaried in the book. So it's really fun that we get to have this conversation.
Oh, I think I'm blushing. Well, I'm really happy to have you here. And I want to preface this for any listeners who might have a background involving abuse. We are going to talk about some things that are a bit heavy in a way that involves hope and healing too. But it's just, I want to give that trigger warning, but also just, I think a lot of us come from a lot of backgrounds that aren't so great. Part of what I love doing is helping show the world, compassionate people, empathic people, that we can do that. We can go there. It won't kill us. In fact, it's where the healing is. So that's why we're going to talk about these heavy things. Would you share a bit about what life was like for little Christi? Some of your earlier memories.
I mean, I would say the word confusion is a huge one for my childhood because if you asked me when I was like 16, 17, 18 years old, when I was heading off to college, and that's where I met my husband, and he remembers meeting me and being like, "You were so fun. You were always dancing around. You were like so joyful." And when I asked you about your childhood, it was like idyllic. Grew up on a lake in Massachusetts and had very regular routines of like little Christian school and going to church on Sunday and playing around outside. And that felt like the truth to me. And then I didn't understand why I was depressed, anxious, suicidal, even. And how could that be when everything was so perfect? Until much later when, I went to counselors and I got on all kinds of medications for depression, anxiety, OCD, PTSD, and nobody could figure out like what was going on until much later. I think I was in my early 40s, the first time a counselor met with me and said, "You need to use the word abuse for your childhood." And I was like, "No way, that's the wrong word. That didn't happen." And she was like, "The stories you're telling me in a very lighthearted way is just the way things were. That is abuse." And that really shook me up because, first of all, I didn't want to believe it. I wanted to buy into like my life was perfect story that I had been told it was perfect. But then there were things like, how did I break my clavicle as a 2-year-old? And there was never any explanation. It happened somehow during a diaper change. And then I started to hear the stories from people who had been raised. I don't know if you ever watched the documentary Shiny Happy People about the Duggar family and like James Dobson stuff. And The Strong Willed Child was one of these books that came out when I was a strong willed child. And I found out from research that, oh, this wasn't just my parents doing what they called Christian spanking. This was kind of a whole system of abuse that was sanctioned by the church. I didn't know it was wrong because, I mean, just a little example. This is not, I don't think I need to, traumatize anybody with all my worst abuse stories, but, like we'd be sitting in church and our family always sat in the very front row where our whole body could be seen by the pastor. There were a couple hundred people behind us. And if I was fidgeting or playing around or drawing or doing something during church, I was supposed to sit perfectly still and behave. And so then my mom would start with twist the skin under my arm as a first, like, you better be quiet. If that didn't work, it was pull out the brush. And if that didn't work, she would march me up the aisle to the ladies' bathroom for a pretty hard spank, and then march me back down the aisle in tears to the front row to sit down quietly for the rest of the sermon. And no one in the church that I'm aware of ever said, "Hey, what's going on?" It felt to me, whether it was or not, I mean, unspoken, it appeared to be sanctioned by a couple hundred people that hitting your kid on a regular basis was okay. And that wasn't even touching on the crazy hitting situations that happened not
Outside
in
of
public.
public view. Yeah.
Right, right. But
Yeah.
just that could be done in front of everyone. And I would guess they all, like, why else is somebody dragging their kid out of church? It didn't seem like there was anybody in the system that was saying it was wrong. And so it had all become normalized. And it wasn't till later that I found out, like, oh, spanking a kid at 4 months old when they reach for a toy, it was this very systematic training that if you want something, you will be punished, which of course is the opposite of everything we learn in healthy boundaries, that your desires are good, that you're good.
It's so sad because the said goal in that world is to help create goodness,
Yes.
purity, joy, happiness. I mean, those are like the said goals. Here's how to, you know, create a good person and also a highly spiritual person, a devout worshiper, all those things. And yet, violence, control, fear.
Yes. And
What
that's why the
do
word confusion is so, because it feels like this major mental switch that good is bad and bad is good, but, like, how do you make sense of any of it? Because we were the good kids. I was the valedictorian of my class. I was an artist. I was a musician. I was creative and,
it
you
worked,
know,
quote, quote, it
yeah,
worked.
it worked. I turned out okay, and it must have been because of the discipline.
I think also what you said about the whole congregation watching, there's something about the messages that we get from childhood that are there's so much power in the behavioral, bodily, unspoken messages that actually make things sink in so much more. So when all the people seem to give approval, of course that little child's gonna be like, "This is the way of it."
There's nothing to be said. There was no story to tell. It was just I was evil and I knew it for sure. There was no question. And I knew for a fact that I was burning in hell. Like, that was a daily fear literally beaten into me, to the extent that when I was 12 years old, and I say this in my memoir, I stood up in front of the whole church to what they call profess your faith, which most people just kind of did at age 18 when they graduated from high school. There was this kind of rote thing that everyone did. But I was so terrified of an eternal conscious torment because I was evil and needed punishment that I professed at age 12. And all the men, the whole elder board interviewed me as a 12-year-old, and they were super impressed. This 12-year-old knows she's a sinner. She's so good. And talk about mind craziness. Like, you know you're bad, so that makes you good. So now you can get these accolades from all the men because you know how evil you are. So you're praised for knowing you're evil. It's very messed up.
Yeah. I know everybody comes from different backgrounds in different faith systems or none. There's a lot of similarity between mine and yours, and hell was such a feature. It was like the ground is,
Mhm.
made of earth, the sky is blue,
Yeah.
and hell is real. When you actually really believe that is true, it has significant impact. It creates so much anxiety, if not for yourself, for everybody else. There is no way to avoid eternal torture, if not for yourself, for others. There's no, and how, if you're a compassionate person, like, what does that do to you? And thinking on a child's development, what does that do to a child? But when you kind of grow up in that world, it's normal and good. We grow up, there's these deep-seated beliefs that F us up in 8 million different ways that you don't even know you're doing. But I know the belief I held that I am not worthy created so much havoc. I didn't even know that was a belief. I didn't even know I had it. It was just such an unconscious level. What are some of the beliefs that are natural to pick up about oneself when you grow up the way that you did?
Yeah, and it really is the opposite of I'm worthy. First of all, it's a world of hierarchy. And I think the real world, the world of love that we believe in now, is radical equality. There is no possible way I could be worth more or less than you, or worth more or less than I am tomorrow or yesterday, or more or less than someone in another country or another religion or anything. It's just you're breathing, you're alive, and therefore you're infinitely valuable, period. And that's the truth of love. And when you're in that system, it's founded on a lie of hierarchy. And so you have God is male and distant and powerful, and his job is punishment and reward. Then the men, especially older white men, have the next layer of power, and they are also responsible to reward and punish people under them. Then it's the adult women, and children are last. And when you look at people in terms of good and evil and reward and punishment, the guy in charge is killing one kid to save the other kids who still deserve to get killed. And so you're meant to always feel really grateful for this guy for sparing your life, but also afraid that he could do the same thing to you. And what does that do to your parents who believe in that kind of philosophy? Then they can also kill one of their children for the good of their soul or for the good of somebody else. And they're also operating under this kind of crazy story of hierarchy that can't exist. And if you're a little girl, a child in that system, you're at the bottom rung. And I think the other thing that happens there is because God is distant, love doesn't start inside. Love is very far away. And therefore, when you love people under this world, you love people starting with far away. So you give to the starving children in another continent, and it's almost like you expand your love ring isn't actually love, it's duty and obligation and sacrifice. And it begins as far from you as possible and gradually comes closer until by the time you get to your own children or your own self, there should be nothing left. You should have given it all away before you got to that point.
You are nailing it.
And
You are
so,
nailing
y-
it.
yeah, so like the work that you and I do with boundaries is like, no, whoever God is, it's welling up from the earth below you through your body. It's in you. You're part of it, and it can't be otherwise. And therefore, love begins here, now, inside of me, inside of you, and it overflows. And so it's almost like if you're in a murmuration of starlings, you watch these millions of birds going through the sky. They each know who the seven starlings are around them and they move together. But it's like you're responsible for spreading your own wings and for the wind carrying you, and you pay attention to those close to you, and it expands, which is very different from tribalism. You're not fighting against a different group of starlings, or you're not creating a bounded set. It's an expanding set, starting from the center and moving outward.
So powerful. My little experience was different from yours, but it's in that same bubble. And actually, that bubble was one I was coming out of in my 20s. So I started my young adulthood there, still terrified, really, devout and terrified at the same time
Yeah,
because fear
right.
is supposed to be a part of it.
Trying to be so good, but knowing you're bad.
Well,
And
and yeah, and you're actually supposed to be fearful. It's a good sign in
yeah,
that world. But I remember, you're probably the same way. I was a little, verse quoter and stuff, and I remember some of the earliest verses. I think I was 3. And, the heart is deceitful above all things and desperately wicked. Who can know it,
right.
right? Um,
Don't trust yourself. Don't trust your feelings. Don't trust your
yes! The mind of
thoughts.
a
Don't.
man plans his way, but the Lord directs his steps. Like, do not trust this. And I know that those scriptures can be used in different ways. I know that. So I'm not putting down sacred text for anybody, but the way in which, the framework in which it was understood inside of this particular theological world, whatever you call it, is very much human worm.
Yes.
But love, safety, acceptance, belonging, goodness, righteousness, all these things are outside of you. You have like anti them. You don't even not have them. You have the exact opposite of them in you. And I think it sets up abuse.
It's so painful when you think of yourself as kryptonite and you've got to be destroyed for the good things to flourish. I
Yes.
mean,
Even giving, even generosity.
right. Gonna give, give, give.
Yeah. Sacrifice yourself. And there's a place for self sacrifice. I really, truly believe. But when you're taught it as the goal, the permanent goal, and the only way, the proof of generosity, the proof of loving kindness is in your self-sacrifice. I always thought of it like there are boundaries there, but they're the kind that just squish out life for so many of us. They're of a false or toxic version of boundaries that keep us in. And when we find love, whatever that looks like for each person, when we find love with a capital L, it's like this such an expansiveness begins. And it's almost when you come from such a fear-based world, it's almost like, is this I ask that so many times, "Is this allowed? Is this allowed?"
Right.
Like, is it okay to feel this good? Like, thinking this is not a sign I'm moving in the right direction, but it was.
Right, and that's what really, shocked me too. I think you're the one who recommended Pia Melody's book maybe about codependency.
Probably because she comes from Terry Real.
Right.
Then
Terry
yeah,
Real and Pia
exactly.
Melody and
Follow
you,
the
I
trail.
put you all sort of in this similar cluster of wisdom. But I remember just opening her workbook and she said something like a functional adult, and then she put in parentheses, someone who acts in their own best interest. And then she kept going, and I was like, hello, hello, what's in those parentheses? Like,
Yeah.
that was just a throwaway comment. Like, I thought we weren't supposed to be acting in our own best interest. I thought we were supposed to be acting in everybody else's best interest because we were taught that from day one. And so then she goes on to say, like, acting in your own best interest, if you're coming from codependency, it feels shameful and wrong. Like, "Oh, no, I'm looking out for number 1 like I was told never to do," or "I'm joining the evils of capitalism," or whatever, instead of being like, "No, we are given one kingdom to rule for this lifetime, and it is this body and this mind and this soul. There I wasn't given anyone else's body to take care of. That's my responsibility. And it doesn't mean I'm selfish. It means that in the grand scheme of things, if there's 8 billion of us here, I've been given this body. That's my job to take care of. And out of the abundance of life, when I nourish myself and treat the one precious gift that I've been given to caretake, I do a really good job with that. There's going to be tons overflowing. It's not pieces of a pie, a zero-sum game. If I take care of me, then you can't take care of you. No, it's like, oh, my kids need to see me taking care of what I'm responsible for. Because of course I would want my kids, like when you think about someone else, if you saw someone not eating, not sleeping, not making enough money to do what they need to do in life, you would be concerned about them and you would want them to stop that and treat themselves better. Um, we have something that we say in our family. I'll say to my kids, like, take good care of my daughter, would you? And they'll be like, well, you take good care of my mom. And so that gives us a little distance. So it doesn't feel like go be selfish. It's like, you're important to me. Nobody's responsible for somebody else's body unless they're sick or, they're a very young child or there's some other reason that, yes, we need a community. But taking care of yourself is your job. It's your main job. And when you do that, you can take care of others because you're healthy.
Exactly. I think that the way it got wonky in some of the spheres out there, the way it got really narcissistic, grandiose, really ugly, the excesses of, I'm thinking of the 80s, the excesses, and this is when was Dobson really coming into his heyday? Was it in the 70s and
No,
80s?
he wrote his first book, Dare to Discipline, the year I was born, the year before I was born. He wrote in 70 and I was born in 71. And then he wrote The Strong Willed Child when I was about 6. Those were the big books when I was in my early first few years.
Yeah. I know Dare to Discipline was on the bookshelf when I was growing up too, and I think there's some magazine that we got monthly that was Dobson's opinions about everything. I think it was in one sense, a easy sell because there was this ability to point to what was going any hedonism or selfishness, grandiosity out there in popular culture could point to that and say, "See, this is what putting yourself first does." And, the the open brain who's just trusting this person is of God, therefore whatever they say is gonna be great, is like, "It is bad. You're right. Look at that. It's terrible." And then they propose the answer, Therefore, the opposite of that is what is actually good, and here's a few Bible verses that support it.
Let's do the massive either or and not stay in your
Exactly.
healthy center, right?
There is no healthy center there. There isn't one to have. So it's this great argument, and the thing that pissed me off the most as I was coming out of this, well, one of the things, is that, yes, there are people who come into that framework because it is a great place to be if you would like to be predatory or abusive, because victims are trained not to have a voice and people are trained to trust and look away. It's a great place to be if you would like to hurt people. But the injustice that made me feel so sad and upset for a while in my healing process was how many well-intentioned people came in, myself included, and truly believed. And it was so warped, so wrong. And it's one of those things. I think there are many versions of this, things that trap people who have really good intentions, compassionate hearts, frameworks that kind of like what you said, that are like glasses that can go over the eyes, and then you see the world this way. You see the world, for example, like you said, in hierarchy. You see the world in terms of obedience and order. And once you see it that way, then you act accordingly. And it feels like a way of siphoning off the beautiful power and energy and change agentness of compassionate people. And instead, it ends up getting poured into something that is actually not doing the world any favors.
Well, and that's where I think seeing things as a progression is really helpful because, you know, thinking about church and God and love and those things, getting to know Jesus for the first time. For so many people, that is just like amazing. It's so much better than chaos and fighting and warlike tendencies and violence and drunkenness and all kinds of stuff that people come from. And then they find this really loving community in the church where people are saying, we're all sinners, but we're all loved. And there's that initial message in there that is beautiful and that has a place in the world to get people from war into law and order is better than anarchy. And you got to be willing to let things go for something better to come along. So sometimes you get this stability and ritual, community, all these beautiful things that you find in the church. And some churches will grow with you. They will go to that justice and community building and freedom and all kinds of other good things. But if you find yourself stuck in one that is hierarchical and patriarchal and coercive, just because you found something really good in it at the beginning doesn't mean you're stuck there forever. You can still move into more love, more freedom, more understanding, more joy. And it doesn't mean that you need to then go back and proselytize to everybody in your old world. Like people are going to grow at their own pace, right? And you don't have to coerce and control and convince people that they're wrong.
It's so true. There are really beautiful, beautiful ways to be a person of faith, whatever variety. And there are really beautiful communities doing amazing things in this world. It really helped me to think of in terms of fundamentalism. I thought when I was studying all of this and finding my own way out and finding true boundaries and all of those things, I was like, oh, it's fundamentalism. And it's there in everything. It's literally there in it's there in psychology. It's there in, you
If
can
you even New Age or astrology, like
exactly.
Carla McLaren just came out with a new book called Missing the Solstice, which is genius. And she was talking about leaving the New Age. it's just another system where, like, she honestly believed that she had the island of Atlantis inside of her and, like, some of these stories, and it's like it's almost like you learn your mother tongue and it's helpful until it's not. The problem is if it becomes the Hotel California where you can never leave, you can never grow beyond. You're just like, well, now you're a new ager, or now you're, like when I lived in Kenya, we used to drive down to the coast, and it's a really scary potholed road to drive on with all kinds of trucks careening into you. And like after a couple hours, you get really exhausted. And we would always stop at the Sikh temple because Sikhs in that religion, it's all about we love everyone and hospitality is one of their highest virtues. And so you stop at a Sikh temple, you will get fed a huge, copious meal. They've always got food cooking, and you can just be like, tired of driving. Let me stop in and I will be fed. Then does that mean I need to convert to Sikhism and wear certain attire and do everything about that? Like, I think there's something underlying each of the religions that is really gorgeous and beautiful. And there's something about human nature that wants us to constrict it.
There is. I think it's what we're all outgrowing right now. That
Like a
rigidity.
wave worldwide.
Oh, it is. And I love how you put it. We come out of chaos. I think that's so true of us in the macro. We come into order. And now we're at that, okay, if we would like to look back at what we have learned from the rules of fear, order, violence is how you control hierarchy. We've got a lot of classroom opportunities to look back on now. We've created a lot, different ways of doing this. And it's interesting because you can kind of see the fruit of it. Is the fruit of this what we would like to keep eating? We're good at it. We're good at it. Clearly, we can do it a lot of different ways. Is this what is actually best for the optimal health and functioning of the humans? Or would we like to grow into a new way? And I think we're being asked to step up into love. Hey, my friends. I firmly believe that the common struggles we compassionate people face are often doorways, pointing us to the hidden beliefs that so many times keep us stuck. So if overgiving or people-pleasing or guilt around boundaries has been holding you back, I created something to help. It's called the Boundaries Breakthrough Mini Course, and right now, it's totally free. So if you feel the tug to grow in your boundaries journey, this is for you. You can start today at boundary.com/breakthrough. And if you're interested in coming to work with me more closely, the mini course is a wonderful way to dip your toe in the water, get some real help, and if you want to continue with me after that, then cool. I would love that. Boundary.com/breakthrough. It's really good stuff. Have fun.
I keep labyrinths around me all the time. I've got one here that I'm kind of playing with as we talk. Life has twists and turns, and the journey is a long one. And so if somebody is in law and order, and somebody else is in community building, and somebody else is in love, wisdom, a different way of power, like you can be much further in the journey without needing to negate all the previous iterations, and you don't have to hate yourself for what and there's not shame, that you used to love all those songs or love the community that you felt in that group. Like it's almost like you toggle back and forth between that solo journey into the cave versus being together with people. And you've got to keep going back and forth between alone and together and alone and together as you continue on this meandering toward love.
And that it's okay, and that's actually part of the process. And actually, I would say I love that you're saying this because in fundamentalism of any form, what we learn is you must, because it's coercive control, when you find the right thing, you must tell everyone and get them to believe it too.
Right.
Which I
Right.
think is a really helpful sign when you think you're so evolved, but you're shoving it down everyone else's throats without their consent, then you're not as evolved as you think you are.
Oh, I know. I was at this lunch and I forget who it was. It was somebody about the inner development goals of the UN, and it was a compassion project or whatever. And a bunch of us were sharing our lunch together. And I was trying to have a conversation with the guy next to me. But the woman on the other side was going off on this big diatribe about love and how amazing it is and how once you feel it, you'll never go back. And nobody else could get a word in edgewise. So I just kind of like stopped listening to her and started a conversation of my own. And it felt a little bit like I was doing something wrong, like I should keep listening to her preach because what she had to say was so truthful and so important and so amazing, which it is. And when you really know love, there aren't really any words for it anymore. And it's just like people are going to join the love bubble. It's huge. It's big enough for everybody and they're already in it. They might not know it, but it's already there and you don't really have to say anything about it. And so somebody who's shouting about it, I'm like, cool, great. You do you, keep on doing it. And I don't have to listen to anybody's sermon.
I've had enough sermons for one lifetime. Thank you very much.
Yes. Even if it's more truthful than some of the other sermons about power and coercion and everything.
There's an energy about it, isn't it? It's a feeling. And I think, "Oh, I wanna listen."
Well, I think what it is that love can be neither created nor destroyed. It's like energy. It is all the time and it's infinite. And we mess things up when we start thinking, I'm going to create more love and I'm going to give some to you, or I need more love and I'm going to take it from you. And that there's something personal about, I need to work so hard to make sure there's enough of it. And that turns into its own coercion instead of like, it's already there. Let me just relax into it and be grateful for it and trust that it's going to do its thing because it's pumping us full of oxygen and nutrients all the time anyway. And just trust it. Do not need to fix or change anybody.
When you come out of that fear-based world, hierarchy and control, you gotta push all the boulders up the hill. Healing is like you in fact, as a healer, you have to heal them, it
Personal development, keep getting better all
work
the
really hard,
time.
suffer.
What's your
Yeah,
next goal? I mean, even in the coaching world, you get that. Like, you could be a little better than you are now. You could have the next goal. And there's something fun about that. Why not? But it's not actually true.
the truth, capital T, truth. It's
Yes.
reminding me so much that I love this poem so much, but the Rumi poem, "Out beyond the halls of right doing and wrongdoing," I'm mispronouncing it or
There's a field. I'll meet you there, Molly.
Yes, no, it's
Yes.
that. It's so reminding me of that. Like, in the halls of right doing and wrongdoing, it's so much work, and it's good work, and there's a place I think it's part of our progression often as humans. We gotta get to the spot where we go, "You know, there's a right and there's a wrong, and treating people shitty is wrong." And then we make our next level of progression, and for compassionate people, and me being treated badly is also wrong. Oh, that's a thing. And all these things, but there is this beautiful, beautiful moment, and it's different for everybody. And it sometimes isn't all that ceremonial. It's really, really simple. There's this moment when we look up and see this is the brain of Molly, how I picture it. We look up and see this beautiful open field with
Mm.
wildflowers and butterflies and space and spaciousness. And we wander out of that special, important hall where all the rules are and the mind's beautiful attempts to understand the mysteries of everything. And we just wander out into that field and stand there and breathe and look around, and that's when, metaphorically speaking, that's when everything changes because there's love, and turns out it's what's been holding us this whole time. It is us.
Well, and I think that's what makes your work so powerful is that it's in nature. Like you have so many photos of yourself out with water and mountains and trees because the truth of it is known. And I think, all this pushing and striving and doing that we as helpers sometimes get involved in. When I teach coaches, I tell them like coaching is meant to feel like meditation. It's meant to feel like you're completely relaxed and aren't doing anything. And then of course our ego brains are like, but I want to add value to my client. I want to change their life. Them to have this huge aha moment as if I'm going to do something to them. But the truth is they're already made of love as much as I am. And they're already part of nature, which is truthful. So, like, I had a session this morning where we were outdoors. And so I told the client, I'm not your coach. Nature is. I may or may not say anything. We're just going to be walking. And we got to a point in our walk where she's just like, I just don't know. I don't know if this is right or that's right. And I said, what does that tree have to tell you? The tree that was right in front of us. And it was a tree with like 20 different trunks all shooting up. And she just like started laughing and crying, like, oh my gosh. And there's no word, but the tree knows there's no right and wrong. There's just, if there's a bud, it will bloom. It is what it is. It is going to grow in the way it's going to grow. And we don't have to know everything and push everything and do the right thing. Like, just trust that being yourself is the right thing. Or you're alive, period, and you will grow.
Makes me so happy. I just because
Yeah.
it's true. And it sounds so hokey before it's experienced. I remember thinking, like, hearing words like this, if I heard words like this in my 20s when I was very much ruled by a very rigid framework. Here's who you are, here's who the humans are, here's how the world works, here's how we got here, here's where we're going, here's, your life path direction. I couldn't have heard it because I was so invested in that particular framework.
And that's part of it too. I mean, we got to
It is.
ego formation and success and fulfillment and those things are part of it. If you didn't have them in your 20s and 30s, maybe you would have missed something. I don't know.
I know it was my path. It wasn't fun, but exactly the same for you and for everybody listening. We have this series of classrooms that is interesting. We can look back on and go, oh, I see the wisdom that came into me through that experience. When I look back, I'm like, I probably could have gotten that an easier way, but I didn't. That was how I knew
Right, but
to
I
get
mean,
that.
but there aren't any shortcuts. Like, I was talking to a guy on the phone yesterday and I'm like, How did you learn what love is when you're only in your late 20s?" And I'm like, the only people who I've met who know it at the level you do have suffered a great tragedy. And great tragedies do teach you things younger, but we wouldn't wish them on anyone. Like, it's so fine to be on your labyrinth journey and be going one way. And then, like, you don't know how beautiful the labyrinth is from above while you're walking it.
Exactly. Tell everybody a bit about Awaken. It's always, to me, very precious when somebody who's come through a journey involving pain, suffering, is called, for lack of a better word, to be a healer and then
Mm.
does the work to step into it.
I would say awaken is community by nature, and it's not about any one individual's learning. When I first started coaching back in 2009, I had this client who came to me and he said, I just woke up. there's this grace bubble. And he showed me with his hands this grace bubble that was about just a bit bigger than the size of his head. And he was so excited about it. And he wanted everyone to join him in the grace bubble. And he was going to go home and tell his wife how exciting this grace bubble was because he had just woken up to the grace bubble. And I didn't say a word to him, but I just like, man, a grace bubble that's one person big is going to be uncomfortable for a second person to join him. But he came back 2 weeks later and he was so angry and upset. He's like, I'm trying to tell my wife how amazing it is in here to just know what love is and grace. And you don't have to be perfect and you don't have to try so hard. And I just want her to wake up too. And so I said, well, tell me again the size of your grace bubble. And all of a sudden he was like, oh, it's not my grace bubble. It's the grace bubble. And it's huge. And my wife is already in it. She just isn't aware of it yet. And I don't have to do anything. And so it's these kinds of things that people were starting to say to me. And people said, I feel like I just woke up so many times in the coaching. And that's what it felt like for me too, when I was like, oh my goodness, grace, love, it's all a free gift. This is amazing. And I was so excited about it. So I called my coaching company Awaken Coaching, just because that's the word people were using. And then I started getting sad because people would come to me and tell me their story of waking up. And it always involved like so much pain. You know, they'd tell me I had 3 abortions or I've been divorced twice, or, you know, they'd tell me hard things and they hadn't told them to their best friend. And so then as they're waking up, they're going to see me for 10 hours or something. I'm like, how come your best friend doesn't know your heart? Why should I know it better than someone else? And so I really started wanting to have people be able to share with other people. So I started developing group programs, mostly around forgiveness. I was kind of known as the forgiveness coach for a few years. But then I realized, okay, people are able to talk only to the extent that someone else can listen with love. And it's really the other person's presence that allows the story to be told. And I want people to be able to listen. And so then I was like, how can I teach listening? And so anyway, it kind of grew out of there. And so I developed curriculum for 3 different coach training programs. And it was always with this, I want people to be able to share their whole story with others and be heard and listened to. And so I need to teach people how to listen and to tell their stories. They're both there. So I started teaching people to listen, but I wanted people to listen from love. And none of the schools that I wrote curriculum for, they were like, no, we need to teach these skills for,
Clinical.
do
Right.
this in a session so that you'll get these results. And it was all this self-development stuff. And so at some point I was like, I wonder if as an experiment, if I'm the CEO instead of being the number 2 for other people doing stuff, and I teach the stuff that I know is true and get it accredited as a coach training school, but it's really a school of love and a school of community and a school of listening. And so I do still teach people at Awaken Coach Institute. It's accredited by the ICF, and I teach people all of their coaching skills. And I teach them how to break the rules. Like maybe one of your markers is ask about measures of success, but you can pass the exam if you never ask anyone their measures of success, or ask them in a way that relaxing into love is just fine. As a matter, like you don't have to meet your KPIs at work to already be totally loved. So I would say Awaken Coach Institute is a school of love under the guise of an accredited coach training program. You can be a professional coach. You pass all the exams and you can start your profession and do gorgeous stuff with people in your life.
But there's actually been this incredible process of deepening into one's awakening, of
Yes.
becoming love at a whole nother level.
Yes. And I just rewrote the curriculum and redid a bunch of videos this year, 2025, because when I first launched the school in 2020, I'm like, man, I thought I was this amazing, loving person. And now I watch the videos I made 5 years ago and I'm like, ooh, I've grown a lot since then. Like, thank you, former me, but there's more. And I just look forward to, maybe I'll upgrade it again in 5 years, like, or maybe it won't come with me. Maybe it's doing its thing for people who need that stage of the school of love. I don't know, but we're just learning and growing every day and inviting people to the next stage. But I think people who come to awaken tend to be in a pretty big transition in their life, and they really want to get something deeper. They want a spiritual experience where they feel and know what it's like to be loved in community with other people who are doing the same. So, and then they can be a professional coach if they want to.
Well, and it's kinda cool that some are, because you have sent me some amazing, beautiful, compassionate, empathic people I'd sit under any day if I needed a good coach, and it's so fun to share. I love, in my little world, just giving compassionate people the true boundaries, and I love what we do is so beautifully collaborative in I love your heart for lifting compassionate people up.
And the true boundaries, I mean, yeah, it's so funny trying to find words for the stuff we even do because I feel like your work is the same as my work, but yours is in the guise of boundaries. And once you learn boundaries in the way that you teach it, you're basically just learning that you're loved and that love is trustworthy. And once you know how valuable you are, you'll know to take care of yourself and say what you want and need. And it's part of just the way things are that you're important. Yeah, I feel like we're both doing the same work under a different name.
Very much so. It's funny because metaphorically, it's like all these paths lead up the mountain. And I think sometimes in our journeys, I know for my journey, there have been part of the path would be with somebody because they had a really unique gift and vantage point that I needed. And I felt that irresistible pull to work either in that modality or that. I remember, as an example, finding EMDR, getting trained in EMDR, and just thinking,
Yeah.
I want this too. Like, I'm not just going to do this for other people. I want it. Like, finding an EMDR leader and working with them for a bit and snotting into my keyboard while I cried about things that happened to 2-year-old Molly.
Hmm.
Then there was a different pull to go to a different person or modality or group. And that was really important. It layered something else in from a different vantage point on the mountain. And I don't know what it would be like to be a person who only takes one path. I do know that that too is a way. But I've so cherished different teachers and different modalities and different things that have expanded me as a human.
Well, you certainly have been a big part of my journey too, for sure. I mean, yeah.
It's funny because I feel like it would be very easily likewise. It's not gonna surprise me. Someday, I'm gonna be in Spain or
You're
France
going to come to
or wherever you
Spain.
are. Yes,
walk,
exactly.
walk a labyrinth, build a labyrinth together,
I
walk the
can't
cathedral together.
wait. It's fun
Mm.
because, when we get out of the world of hierarchy and all of different rules about how things are supposed to work in business as well, when we come into love and we're doing what we're here to do, there is no competition. There is no scarcity. I like I'm so excited about using what I have and what I'm here to do to grow people into far bigger stages than I can even imagine myself having, because the goal isn't stages. The goal is to move people into what they're here to do, whatever that looks like. And I love that that's your heart as well. And one thing you said, it was so beautiful that you, in developing what would end up becoming Awaken, like a whole ass training program for coaches, kind of like spiritual development training program. you did that not because that idea was in your head to start with, but an idea, a longing, a thing that was missing in the world. In the world that you experience, there's just something missing. And you try to fill that. There's a passion to fill that spot. There's a missing piece that you see. You're uniquely qualified to see it. And you followed that passion, that pull, filled that. Then you noticed another missing piece. Oh, wait a minute. This now.
Which is miraculous because I was taught not to follow my passion, not to trust my body, not to trust my emotions. But somehow I think the human spirit is just, it cannot be shut down. Like it will grow no matter what. And I just think that's true of anybody that I've met.
I think our passion, or that when we see that thing that's the missing piece, I think that's the thing.
Yeah.
I mean, there's many things that are missing pieces, right? My mind can see many different holes, problems to solve, but it's really the thing that we're supposed to do. Our next step is usually what's in our heart. And the heart's like, oh, this really just bugs me, this thing that's just not quite right. And at least that's been my experience too. If I was doing this, I'd do it like this. And I didn't know for so long. I was like, what is wrong with am I just negative? Why do I just keep noticing this problem? I remember the day that it dawned on me when I realized, 'cause I'm supposed to do something about that. That thing I keep
Yeah.
wishing was there is something I am supposed to create, and I felt like, "Oh, duh." It took a
Well,
minute.
because we're taught that anger and annoyance and criticism and are bad when they're just messengers from beyond, as Rumi would say. Like they are there to tell you something and they are your friends. And anger is never something to just let's squash that down. No, anger is just wanting to be alchemized into love
Ugh, I
and
love it.
passion.
And there might just be a actual career or calling sitting there on the other side of that thing that's driving you nuts, that's not quite
Hmm.
right. What if we follow it? What if we take a look at it? What if we put a little energy into it? And how does it feel to put energy into that thing? I mean, I don't know about you, but for me, it was like, oh, I love this. This feels really good.
You can't not do it, and when you do, you're in flow, you wanna do it more, it's, like, bringing you energy and joy, it does not feel like work.
That is a sign. Exactly. Well, I'm really glad that you followed that passion of your heart because, wow. If somebody's interested in Awaken, if somebody wants to know more about what you offer, where should they go to find you?
They can go to awakencoachinstitute.com, and well, first of all, you can get free classes. I would go to the free resources and pick a couple things that look most enticing. And there's also a button that says, "Join our next Q&A call." And so if you wanna know more, there's a button on there, and we have them every 2 weeks all year long. Right now, we're getting a lot of people interested in joining us in Spain in 2026 for our spiritual retreat/coach
I
training.
just looked at it and was like, "Is there a way I could figure out how to do this?" And there isn't with the book coming out, but, oh, it looks so good, and
Mm.
I know people who've gone to these and amazing experience.
Yeah, so awakencoachinstitute.com, and then I would guess that when the book comes out, there will be a splash on that page, and, yeah, my book working title for now is Love Rebel, and it was very embarrassing and hard to write, and I cried many tears, but I wrote it in 6 weeks, and so now it's going into editing, and then it'll go into typesetting and publishing and all
Talk
that.
about flow, though. I mean, it just had to it's funny when it has to come out, it has to come out.
It had to come out, and it's really everything we've been just talking about. It's like, if you try to talk about love, it comes out as either so esoteric and, so heavenly minded, it's no earthly good, or so boring. So it's mostly a book about what love isn't, all the ways that I managed to mess it up and avoid it and all the things and how it was there anyway. So it's a very, very human book about just one particular person who went through abuse and did a lot of dumb things and was loved anyway. So, and I hope it'll be a real joy for people to read, even if it's hard to read sometimes.
That is going to be a gift.
You're in it, Molly. Yes.
I get so shy. I've noticed on previous podcasts when I listen to them, I usually listen when I'm out in nature, and when somebody says something nice about working with me or the program, I notice I kind of like seize up. But I thought I got some work to do around that
Mm.
area still. I guess
Mm,
I don't know. I don't know why. I'll have to explore why.
yeah. Well, because it's personal and not personal too. It's like you can't not be a blessing. That's just not possible. You're made of love. You're going to do wonderful things. And so, in some ways, a compliment doesn't quite feel true. But on the other hand, it's like, good for you that you noticed love. And that means it's in you too. And I think sometimes it can be like if somebody puts you on a pedestal or thinks you're some guru who's way wiser, that can feel a little odd just because I think we know that people are already whole. And
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
to me, it's like, thank you. Thank you for the compliment. And what you can see in me, you can see in yourself.
Yeah, I feel so happy about the changes for them. And it's, I think, because we have so many bad examples of this in the world of egos. I don't ever want that mistake to happen where it's assumed that it was me when I got to witness that amazing human birthing even more of their own amazingness, discovering who they really are. Because at the heart of healing, that's what it is. And part of our own work is releasing that fear of, as I say it, I'm realizing that's ego actually. Oh no, I don't want there to be ego here. That's not coming from my heart. That's coming from my head. My heart can just say thank you, thank you.
Yes.
And you exist in the joy of doing what you're here to do and being a midwife of healing and transformation in your own way. And it's fun to be in this life with you. Christi, it was a pleasure to have you. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Thank you.
My compassionate friend, I am so glad you're with us. We are the compassionate revolution. We are the change the world needs, and we're becoming it. If you loved this episode, please share it with a friend or give this podcast a 5-star review. I'd appreciate it so much. And if you'd like to get practical and work with me more closely on boundaries, you can come visit me at boundaried.com. That's boundaried with a D.com for amazing resources. Because this is how we do it. One action at a time. We are moving into our power. And I'm so proud to be in this movement with you.